Hi folks, and welcome to another primary source walkthrough. This time we are going to be talking about Abigail and John Adams on women in the American Revolution. This is a great source for a number of different reasons. I'm excited to walk through this one with you, man, it's just fun. So. What we have here are we have two letters, one written by John Adams, one written by Abigail Adams. Abigail goes first. John writes a response to her. Sometimes I like to think of Hamilton's response to Adams when Adams starts talking smack about him. Anyway. John Adams does not have the best presidential reputation. We'll say that. Anyway, so let's go ahead and just jump in here. First thing, if you want to know the context of this source, or just about women and the Revolution generally speaking, in the Siegel edition of Eric Foner's Give Me Liberty 5th edition, 245 to 251 are the right pages that you should be looking at. He talks about a number of things in there, from, John and Abigail Adams for one, but, talking about Republican motherhood and some other important concepts in terms of women in British colonial America and the very beginnings of the Revolution. So, let's jump in. Let's see what Abby has to say to Johnny here. And I apologize for all of the notification sounds that you're hearing. I don't know what's going on, man. I'm just popular. So, she starts off with a little guilt. She says, "I wish you would ever write me a letter half as long as I write you, and tell me if you may where your fleet are gone." Hilarious. I wish you'd write me a little bit, and then tell me where your boats went, bro. What kind of defense do we have? Are we safe? I'm really kind of tired of the British, man. They scare me. She makes kind of a reference to the Boston Massacre here. She says, "I hope their riflemen, the British riflemen, who have shown themselves very savage and bloodthirsty, i.e. the Boston Massacre, are not a specimen of the generality of the people." In any case, she starts to question John Adams about his position on liberty. And she says, "I have sometimes been ready to think that the passion for liberty cannot be equally strong in the breasts of those who have been accustomed to deprive their fellow crews of theirs." What she's saying is, she's like, well, bros, you men, you talk about liberty and freedom and how you are owed it, and, think about Thomas Paine and, natural law demands liberty. And yet, you deny it to women. That's what she's saying. She's saying, how can you think so much about liberty for yourself and not about us? I think it's a good question. I think, we've talked about slavery, too, and, how can these American men who own slaves talk so passionately about liberty? You can make that question about women, too. How can these American men talk so passionately about liberty and deny women the same fundamental rights as they want for themselves? So, she goes on, and she's worried a little bit about Boston being cowards, which is funny. Virginians thinking Bostonians are cowards. Man, there's something to be said about that, and I'm thinking, like, what sports reference can I make? And I think, well, Virginia doesn't really have a sports team. I mean, there are the Washington teams. like the football team that doesn't have a name right now because their old name was racist, and the Washington Nationals, the baseball team. But there's no... there's the Washington Capitals and the Washington Wizards, but that's all D.C. That's not really Virginia. Well, Virginia wouldn't claim D.C. anyway. And yeah, that's a complicated... Anyway, why am I talking about this? In any case, she goes on. And she says, I really hope that I hear from you that we have declared independence from Britain. And think about it, she's writing this in 1776. Here's the date on it, March 31st, 1776. So the Declaration of Independence hasn't happened yet. It's in the works, but it's not been issued. And she is desirous of revolution the same way that he is, but she's going to remind him of something. And she says, I would urge you, when you are talking about this, when you have declared independence and you, by necessity, have to write your own code of laws, remember us. Remember the ladies. Don't forget that we want rights too. Be more generous, she says at the top of the next page, than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. What she's kind of referring to here is this old English law called coverture, which essentially makes women the property of their husbands. Coverture, among other things, says things like women can't own property, women can't vote, women can't open a business, they can't have a bank account. Everything's through their husband. And to us, that sounds oppressive. To Abigail Adams, that sounds oppressive. And she has some thoughts about men, too. She's about to say, in 1776 words, men are trash. Here's what she says. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could. That's quite a claim about men. I think she's probably right. Maybe. I think she's going to say something else that's a little different in a minute, but, she warns John Adams and says, look, if you are going to be a tyrant over us, if you're going to establish a tyranny over women, if particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion and will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice or no representation. I like it. She's saying, look, we will rebel against you if you do not give us a say in how we are governed. We are just the same. Now, she continues to throw men in the dumpster, and she says that your sex are naturally tyrannical is a truth so thoroughly established as to admit of no dispute. No one denies this, is what she's saying. Everyone knows that men are tyrannical by nature. But she says, some of you, as wish to be, happy willingly to give up the harsh title of master for the more tender and endearing one of friend. That there are some men who at least are willing to put their tyrannical nature aside and recognize women as equals. So you should do the same, is what she says. Men of sense in all ages hate, or says abhor, she means hate, those customs which treat us, women, only as the vassals of sex, of men, as servants of men. So, she has said, remember the ladies, we deserve rights too. If you don't give us rights, we're going to rebel. And you should not be a tyrant, but be a friend. How does John reply? As to Declaration of Independency, be patient. It's coming. Then, As to your extraordinary code of laws, all of the things that you just said about women deserving rights, I cannot help but laugh. Bruh. He then talks a little bit about the revolution and how the revolution is saying, like, you know, people are claiming about the revolution that it's, you know, affecting governments everywhere, that, you know, everything is upside down, blah, blah, blah. And then what John Adams says is, I didn't even think about it, and now you're trying to overthrow the order too. And, it's even more powerful than those other things. And I guess, like, that's pretty harsh to say, but as he says, you were so saucy, I won't hold back. What a nice guy. Now, he has basically rejected everything that she asked for. And said, no, I'm really not going to listen to you right now. He gets a little bit kind of sarcastic with her, and, you know, I think he kind of tries to shrug it off and say, like, you know, we just really want our men who are going to fight in our militia to do well against the British. It's really an acceptance of what she has to say. So, again, we approach the question. How revolutionary is the American Revolution for women? And here we have a woman power, Abigail Adams, who is next to, who will end up being the second president of the United States, and her husband. Not even he can convince the man at the top to remember the ladies. And think about the rights that women have had to fight for. Now, is coverture going to be the way of things? No. But are women going to be able to participate in this new representative democracy the same way that men are? No, they're not. And that is a question of fairness, and if all men, all people are created equal, shouldn't they have the same rights? Well, something that you need to think about. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I think this, along with the other primary sources that you've read about the American Revolution, give you a sense of how complicated a picture it is. That's really what I'm trying to get you to realize this week, that the revolution is not just this instantaneous, glorious gaining of freedom for everybody who lives on in North America. It's way more complicated than that, and something that you need to think about. And you might even see it in an essay question. So keep thinking about it. We're going to go ahead and end our primary source walkthroughs for this week with this one. And next week, we're going to talk about the Constitution itself. So be prepared for that. I can't wait. It's exciting. We'll see you then, folks. Take care. Have a good one.